Olá, sejam bem-vindos a mais um Agro América, programa produzido em parceria com o Instituto Interamericano de Cooperação para a Agricultura, aqui no canal AgroMais. Falamos de boas práticas agrícolas que podem ser reproduzidas nos 34 países membros em prol do bem-estar rural e a segurança alimentar. Eu estou aqui agora com o Ministro da Agricultura, Segurança Alimentar e Nutritiva de Barbados, Indar Weir. Minister, thank you so much for accepting our interview here. It's a wonderful opportunity to be in Costa Rica, here at ICA's main headquarters, to talk about the future of agriculture in Barbados. I'd like to know what is the state right now of agriculture in Barbados, what are the main products being produced, and what are the challenges that you see ahead?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I always enjoy myself when I'm here in Costa Rica, and I'm very grateful to ICA for the work that they're doing in helping us in Barbados to be able to develop the sector. So if I were to get to your question, I would say to you that given the collaboration that we have going with ICA, we're able to do a number of really great things in agriculture. First of all, our focus on the youth in agriculture, getting back agriculture into our schools, and then creating that community spirit and fellowship amongst Barbadians by being able to develop a project called Project CARE, which is Community Agriculture Response and Enfranchisement. And you know, there's a saying in Barbados that our Prime Minister, who's Mayor Motley, she has a tag which says Mayor Cares. So the fact that we have a project called Project CARE should all tell you that this project is built on the hard work that she has been doing. And certainly that gives us an opportunity to allow for people and communities in Barbados to be able to grow their own food, giving us our food sovereignty, and then to help us achieve food security by being able to help those commercial farmers by way of people in communities who many times will not be able to go in a supermarket, for example, and purchase at the price that is in the supermarket, but will be given an opportunity to grow it themselves and be able to share amongst themselves within communities, and growing what we have in Barbados called kitchen gardens or backyard gardening, where people can grow all the herbs, etc., that they need in order to prepare their foods. And Barbadians like spicy food, so things like peppers, etc., and then livestock as well. So we're doing a number of things. We also have the Farmers Empowerment and Enfranchisement Drive, which is called the FEED program. And that is giving us an opportunity to train young people to use technology in farming, to get to digital agriculture, and also to provide farm schools where the extension officers will be able to train people in a practical and realistic way on how to grow crops. So those are some of the initiatives, in addition to our legislative framework, because once you have the policy, then you have to have legislation as well. And those, we can talk about that, but those are some of the things that we are doing.
Fantastic. Well, Barbados is seen as one of the main examples of success in implementing good practices and as well as public policy in order to improve food security around the island, around the country. And in that perspective, it's seen as an example for the other nations around. What are your perspectives on what was presented today by ICA in terms of new and better strategies in order to improve food security around the region, especially with the development of climate resilient food systems?
Yeah, I was very pleased with the detailed work, first of all, that was presented, and the stats were just mind-boggling. It is true that we have fallen down in some areas, and what I think we can use that information for is to be able to see where we are off track and to be able to get back on track. As I mentioned this morning when I spoke, there are some gaps that we need to shrink, where it might be too difficult to close them, and those ones that we can close, we have to set about trying to determine how we can close them. But the truth is that within the region, within CARICOM as a whole, we need to have a logistics hub where we can trade between ourselves, just like it's happening in Latin America. And what the stats this morning did demonstrate to me in very clear terms, that what we need to do in order to be able to do import substitution is to be able to collaborate between member states of CARICOM using the logistics hub, just like the food terminal that is being developed in Barbados, where we can move all the produce that is coming from within the region into that food terminal. It is clean, processed, packaged, and then because of the airlift that we have out of Barbados, it then can be freight to the UK, to the USA, and then with the connections from there, we can get way beyond the region. I strongly believe that we need some kind of logistics in terms of shipment by sea. That has to be worked on. I know that there's a project with the CDB that is looking at logistics for the region, and I strongly believe that using a hub and spoke arrangement where Barbados is the hub for the transfer or movement of food from within the region, then we will go a long way in addressing a number of the issues that were raised this morning in terms of the amount that we are importing vis-a-vis what we are actually exporting. There's a huge gap there. And then between ourselves, the opportunities for trade that we really need to zoom in on and be able to benefit from in order for the region itself to achieve the objective of reducing the food import bill by 25% by the year 2025.
And how realistic is that in your opinion? I mean, that's 2 years from now. We're already halfway through the year. Do you think that it's possible in order to achieve that? Do you think that the initiatives that need to implement and achieve this goal need to be further enhanced? There needs to be further investment in this kind of initiative?
Yeah, well, you know, they say the longest journey always starts with the first step. When the United Nations set the SDGs, or SDG 2, 3, and 10, which are the ones that I'm particularly focused on, zero hunger, improve health, and equal opportunities for everyone. They too didn't envisage that there was going to be a COVID pandemic that would take away 2 years of economic activity, whether we like it or not. This is a reality that we cannot get past. And so with that 2 years, there's the likelihood that we can fall behind on our target. But that shouldn't stop us from forging ahead with what we can achieve. And we may not achieve everything. The objective is to achieve most of the things. And then the ones that we can't do by 2025, we look to see how fast we can bring them along. Our Black Belly Sheep project with Guyana is well on the way. I believe that by 2025, that should really make a significant difference in the amount of lamb that we import into CARICOM and certainly into Barbados. Equally, a lot of the projects where we've targeted specific crops, we've started to see results. Guyana is doing very well in terms of their projections. We've just started a shrimp project in Barbados, so we've done the pilot project. Once that is proven to be successful, then we can continue to build on that. And you do know it doesn't take 2 years in order to grow a shrimp. So we should still be on the way in terms of import substitution with that. And then we have our aquaculture projects that are coming on stream with the development of reservoirs across the island. And then there's an investor that is looking at doing a major project. Once we can get that up and going by next year, which is 2024, then it gives us still a good opportunity to be able to reach most of the targets set within that 25 by 25 objective. And I dare say that most of CARICOM, really, when we meet at the Agriculture Task Force level within CARICOM Secretariat, most of the member states are forging ahead. I can't say it will be perfect. I would like it to be. SDG 2 wouldn't be, but we still have to work towards it. And equally, we have to do the same with our 25 by 25.
Fantastic. Well, Prime Minister Motley is seen as one of the great leaders in the region. You and her have done wonderful work in order to addressing exactly these public policies in order to increase food security for everyone in the island, especially with the initiative of people growing their own food, right? Using the space that is there and not looking only at the commercial side of selling or exporting food, which is also interesting. In terms of fisheries and using the ocean as a resource, you said Barbados could be a hub for that. Other islands look for a country to be a hub because there is still fleet shortages, there are still older shipping fleets that need to be renewed, many infrastructure as well as logistical challenges ahead. What is your vision on this, and what do you think would be the next steps in order to improve this?
Well, as I said, the Caribbean Development Bank, really, they have a committee that is looking at how we can improve the logistics within the region. And I know because my ministry has a representative on that committee. I think coming out of that work, it would tell us in very clear terms what we need to do. My view is that we must be able to move food around the region. We have Roraima in Brazil that is landlocked. And therefore, if we can move food from there, let's say, for example, directly to Barbados or even through Latam and Guyana, then down to Barbados, that's an opportunity for us to have increased production, increased access to primary agricultural produce that we can use for agri-processing. Then if we're getting out of Guyana as well, then if you look at the entire region, going as far north as Antigua and Barbuda, and working your way down south, come to Barbados. Barbados, we enjoy, especially during the winter period, perhaps the most airlift in the entire region, out of the United Kingdom, some out of Canada, some out of the United States of America. We have to work on the CARICOM region to get back the airlift that we used to have in the region. And if we can then create a model similar to what we had when we had a dedicated cargo airline called CariCargo, just simply to move cargo, then you see the tremendous amount of opportunities that are available, not just for Barbados, but for all the member states, even though Barbados will be used as that hub in order to be able to move produce within the region and beyond the region. That to me is perhaps the ideal situation that one may want to create in order for us to enfranchise our people. Many times people shy away from agriculture because they don't see the return on investment similar to if you were perhaps doing renewable energy. If you get into renewable energy, you have almost a guaranteed return on your investment. The risk in agriculture is somewhat different, and I will speak to those. Agriculture does not have insurance. So you're at risk now with climate change, with climatic events that would take place. You're either going to get droughts that will destroy crops if you're not using the technology in order to use technology-driven systems with the chillers and the lights and the heat control, etc. And not everybody in agriculture is going to get to that space immediately. So it is really a timing issue. And then equally, if you're not getting droughts, you're getting so much rainfall that you end up with floods, which also puts crops at risk, puts animals at risk as well. And if that wasn't enough, then we were going to get a combination of them, something called hurricanes and storms and those sorts of things. And within a period where between June to almost December, we have to be constantly monitoring because the risk is so great. Yeah. So I think that we need really to invest more in using technology in agriculture. And that's the reason why we're working with ICA to develop an innovation center in Barbados. And why are we doing this? We're doing this so that people can see in real time the Internet of Things, how technology can be used in order for them to participate in agriculture without having to go in the field, without having to go in the sun, without having to be at risk for droughts or indeed for floods. less water intensive. I just attended a conference with the FAO, first of all dealing with least developed countries, small island developing states, and landlocked developing countries. And I tell you that coming off that, we went into the FAO conference, and it was amazing. Actually, I mean, it was mind-boggling to see the amount of countries in the world that are impacted by climate change, where they now have to use water management programs in order to be able to provide water for farmers. And there was I thinking that this was only a Barbados thing. This is actually a global phenomenon. And you know, you're not going to manage this by treating to it the same way you've done in the past. So we now have to look at less water intensive systems, and clearly we have to look and see how we can develop mariculture as well, in order for us to take advantage of the blue economy and the opportunities within the ocean.
Mm-hmm. What are the opportunities do you see for cooperation with other countries outside of the Caribbean region that lead agriculture, especially tropical agriculture, that can be easily implemented in countries in the Caribbean region?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. There's a uniqueness about the countries within CARICOM. For example, St. Vincent and Grenadines is mountainous. So the higher you go, the cooler you get. I think they will be good for producing white potatoes, for example, which Barbados certainly can't do at the same level as they will be able to do. And so given that uniqueness, if we can forge ahead, by looking at the unique characteristics of each island to say who is strong in whichever area. For example, I know that Barbados is very strong in poultry production. And if we can then use what we know and the investment we have in order for us to be able to come to an agreement where we would produce the hatching eggs and all the poultry chicks, baby chicks, etc., to help the region develop, but at the same time allow for an opportunity to export in poultry. And then St. Vincent and the Grenadines have an opportunity to export white potatoes and other crops like those. And then you can replicate that right across the entire region, all the way up to Jamaica. All of a sudden, then you have a region that has come to a consciousness where they recognize the assets in terms of the use of land to be able to produce, and then focus on what our objectives are. The continuous work of the ministerial task force and keeping each other in the loop as we progress by providing the information that is required to see how we are progressing.
Mm-hmm. As president of the executive committee of ICA for the next few years, this is all obviously in line with the next few steps of the region.
Definitely. I think the work as presented today by ICA is enough to make me comfortable to come into the chair and be able to make sure that the work is executed. The truth is that there are a number of things that we need to see which can be augmented. For example, there's a project being sponsored by the USAID. That project allows for an opportunity to use apps, and that will be work done through the CARICOM Secretariat, so that extension officers can use apps to provide real-time information to farmers, to our counterparts within the region. But something that is bigger for me is for us how we can create an online trading platform that allows for the entire region to be able to say what crops Barbados, for example, have, how many acres, what is the expected yield, when will they be harvested, okay? What quantities are available for export, and the same thing right across the entire region. That gives us then a good opportunity to plan. It also gives us a good opportunity to be able to see how we are tracking with our food sovereignty and our food security. And I think that platform is needed now more than ever. I am currently working in Barbados, for example, on a platform, and even though it is a little more complex than I thought it ought to have been, we're still trying to deliver it where we have a market online for farmers to show what they have in stock, the price that is being sold at, and the period in which it was harvested and those sorts of things. And that is one project that I really want to see. The other one is how do we address the issue of insurance, which I mentioned earlier. The risk involved with insurance, you know, it makes it very difficult. But we are working with a project in Barbados in order to see how we can get some insurance for farmers. This is something I really would like to see intensify to the scale where farmers can actually get insurance, particularly if we have acknowledged and accepted, and globally, it has been accepted that we have to deal with climate change. It has been accepted that how it's impacting us. It has been accepted that the danger that it poses to our very existence is real. And therefore, I think we should face the reality in recognizing that in order for us to feed ourselves and to be able to drive food security, and in order for us to stay focused on SDG 2, then we must be able to support the farmers with some level of insurance to help them mitigate risk as well. Some from crop theft, some from the crop diseases, some from pest invasion. All these things are part of what climate change can do.
Well, Minister, we're coming to the end of the interview, and I'd like to touch a little bit on insurance, which is so important for farmers. We see that larger countries that are exporters of commodities have models of insurance that are often financed by the federal government. And this is one type of model of insurance. Is there a type of model that you look at as practical for the Caribbean countries?
Well, I mean, what we are looking at really and truly is just to build a model through one insurance company. It is not the same type of high-risk insurance that you associate with insurance, so it's fairly conservative. But what I want to see is, and I've said this at the last FAO conference, is that I think the world has come to the point where they've recognized that we really do need food security and that climate change is real. I think they've also come to the point where they recognize that we need to invest more in agriculture in order for us to achieve our sustainable development goals. The next thing we need to do is to secure that. And I think that that is where now places like the Green Climate Fund and those would have to then sit down and have a conversation on how we can build a model to provide insurance for farmers, especially those who are extremely high risk, like within the Caribbean region, simply because of the amount of hurricanes that pass through. And that type of investment should come in the way of providing insurance for climate smart agriculture, for example. The World Bank should have a role to play in this as well. Certainly the United Nations, because we have to continue to work towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And then ICA and the FAO and the other international stakeholders must also play a part. My role really in chairing the committee will be to see how we can look at developing a model that would provide insurance for agriculture. One that is sustainable, one also that the investment must come attached to climate and attached to climate smart agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Would this be in terms of future prospects, let's say attached to how countries can also measure their impact and their climate, let's say, reduction effects in a way that would also need for technology for those farmers to be able to measure their impact and their carbon reduction, correct?
Yes, definitely, and I think the use of a combination of things, but the technology is there. Certainly the apps, for example, that I spoke of earlier with the extension officers, which can give you real-time information so that you can mitigate. I think adaptation really and truly has moved along very well. It is building resilience now, and that is where we need to go. And that is where technology is going to play a critical part, and we have to get everybody there.
Yeah. Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Wonderful. Ficamos por aqui. Muito obrigado pela sua audiência e te aguardo no nosso próximo Agro América. Até mais.